Call to order the special meeting for the July 26, 2022. We're going to do roll call.
Josh Jones.
Here.
Tim Van Hookey.
Here.
Shane Walker.
Here.
Matthew Wells.
Here.
Catherine Harrington.
Here. Flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is consideration of the vacation of the plotted area alley located between the plotted 16-foot alley between lots 1 to 48, block 12, Gun and Ford's East Site Addition.
Madam Mayor, if I may, concerning the alleyway, we must maintain the charter ordinances and the city codes relating to the public right-of-ways. Even if the land is granted to these people to use for access, the codes and the ordinances that we have on our books must still apply. No structures or fences shall be built on any public right-of-way. We've gone over this, and it is well established within our commission because of previous issues. And we can see all over town where it has caused problems many, many times when this particular ordinance and the codes associated with it have not been followed. Therefore, it is my recommendation that we can grant them access to the land, but in accordance with our ordinances, nothing shall be built upon that public right-of-way. And just to reiterate, that particular ordinance is 12:8:10, prohibited acts. It is unlawful for any person or person to encroach upon, obstruct, or enclose any of the streets, alleys, avenues, and or public grounds of the city, or any parts, portions of any streets, avenues, alleys, or public grounds by fencing it in or by building upon or erecting structures, houses, fences, walls, stairs, staircases, porches above, in, or over the same area.
Now, would that apply though if we vacate?
According to the way the city ordinance is read and from the conversations that I had with other individuals, yes, that still applies. If you go around town to the other areas where avenues have been vacated, we have still in those areas not allowed them to build their fences onto that alleyway or to build structures upon that alleyway, because it is still, even if we vacate it, it's still deemed a public right of way. So in the future, when that road would be needed, though this may be a moot point, it still has to be accessible. And this is the issue that we have on 12th Street. It's the issue that we have on the alleyway behind the Methodist Church and many others where we did not properly enforce that. And now we have structures that are in the way that we at some point are going to have to tear down and move. So it just needs to be noted, like the agreement that we had with the people who built the fence on 12th Street, that when that structure has to be demoed and removed, it will be done at the owner's expense, and they'll have to pay for it. So if the commission decides, according to the way our ordinances are written, that it is okay for them to use that property, and you grant them the authority to build on it, they are building with the foreknowledge that that structure will have to be torn down and moved at their expense at some point.
Now, so I went up and looked at this. That's not a utility easement
No.
at all.
No. That one is,
And traditionally, a lot of times, the right-of-way not only goes to as far as public access too, but a lot of times in a case like this, the higher concern is access for utility workers,
some of it,
access for first responders, and so on and so
Yes, sir.
forth. And in this case, I went down there a couple of times and looked at it myself. And are you aware of any utility right-of-way concerns that exist in that alley?
none of the utility companies said at this point that they are expressing any interest in using that alleyway for utilities. Crawcan has said that if they do run utilities for fiber over in that area, they will utilize the alleyway for their fiber runs. So they are the only one that expressed an interest
I
that
mean,
they
I think
would use
number
that.
4 in the ordinance says that all rights for public utilities, right-of-ways, and easements originally held by the city are reserved to the city. So
Mhm.
it says in the ordinance that,
Yes.
yeah, so.
I just wanted there. I drove around. I went over and looked at the property in question, and then I drove around and looked at some others where we have vacated the alley and put curb in, and we still have the alleys laid out. You can see down the fence rows that the alleys are still there, so that nothing is built on those right of ways.
Maybe one day we'll get sewer up there.
Maybe we'll get sewer up there and down that alley, and if there were any other utilities that needed to be, I mean, maybe I'm dreaming, but I would like to see that east side revitalized. And so I just want it to be made aware that when we go to add those things, when we go to do what needs to be done in that area eventually, and it may not be for another 10 years, that those alleyways need to remain the public right of way for those intended purposes.
I'll make a motion to approve the vacation of the platted alleyway. Ordinance 3613.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, with the notion that, again, you know, to paragraph 4 that you reference, all rights for public utilities, rights of way, and easements for public. It's kind of a build it at your own risk type of proposition.
Yes.
But without there being anything there existing right now, appears like the majority of the folks that live there, based on what they applied for, are for it.
Mhm.
So I'll move to second Commissioner Jones' motion. But thank you, Matthew, for bringing that up, because I'll be honest with you, good stuff.
Yep. I just want to make sure that we don't continue to have that problem again of things being built on the right of ways that then cause the city problems later on.
But you would agree that right now, with nothing there, and with the residents around that area,
They would still be in violation of our city ordinances
if they built on it.
if they build on that. But I mean, yeah, they can use it whatever. They just can't enclose it with a fence or build any structure upon it.
Any other further discussion? Seeing none.
Josh Jones,
Yes.
Tim Van Hookey,
Yes.
Shane Walker,
Yes.
Matthew Wells,
In light of the ordinance, I'm going to vote no.
and Catherine Harrington.
Yes. Next is the consideration of the Lake Fort Scott Dam dirt work.
Madam Mayor, the
Hey, Kel,
Your mic's cut out.
Yeah.
We need to switch you.
then it,
we've got like 2 words of that.
well, let's start over. Madam Mayor, inside your packet is a email that I had sent the documents inside your packet of the specifications for dirt work and earthwork for the city of Fort Scott. He responded to that. There were 2 things in question. One was that we didn't have specifications that were necessarily required of our bidders. And second question was that brought into question was the seal of engineering, and it is on the drawings. So they are stamped with the engineer seal of Ag Engineers. And after Jason Marbury looked at the specifications, he said that they weren't a problem, and he felt like his estimate as for the dirt work was good to go.
Any discussion?
My only question is that according to the email, he says that they have excluded testing. So are we going to have an engineer do the testing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and then it will have to be completely inspected through the process and a report written to the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
And state of Kansas is really pushing that this be done by September 30th.
Yeah, so we can get the reports in and get all of our testing done and get everything back to the state Kansas Department of Ag.
When does he expect to start on this?
I'm sure sometime within August.
And just for transparency's sake, did we allow the other contractors to rebid based upon the specifications or anything?
Now, as all the bids stand.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, what was turned in is what they are willing to live with.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion. We accept Marbury's bid for the work on the dam.
I will second that.
Josh, do you have the number for that? The bid of what was the actual bid? I didn't bring my binder with me.
It was 33,000 something.
39,000, I think was Marbury's bid.
I thought it was 38.
Yeah, it's
33.
Was it 33?
It's 33.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have my binder.
$1.
I don't have my binder with me to actually pull that.
Yeah, mine's the
bids.
lowest. Let's go with that. Yeah, whatever
The lowest bid.
the
for
lowest bid. Yeah.
Yeah, the bid that he submitted.
Any discussion? Seeing none?
I guess the only other question I would have is, were we in agreement with that the funds were going to be provided from the lake fund to do this project? Because we don't have the money anywhere else.
Yeah, that'd have to be part of the motion. Since that's the way that fund's set up.
It is.
So,
It's set under ordinance that way. That you
yeah,
have to
so you said so.
specify that the monies come from the lake funds.
Okay, so I'll just amend it to accept his bid, use it from the lake fund account.
To accept.
Josh Jones.
Yes.
Tim Van Hook,
Yes.
Shane Walker,
Yes.
Matthew Wells,
Yes.
Catherine Harrington.
Yes. Now we have to move to adjourn to do the
Oh,
work.
yeah. Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
Josh Jones.
Yes.
Tim Van Hookie,
Yes.
Shane Walker,
Yes.
Matthew Wells,
Yes.
Catherine Harrington.
Yes. We don't have to restart this, do we? Or can we use the same one?
No, you can keep using it.
I think we have to restart it as a different.
We go into executive session.
No, I think you can just, I would just, whenever you, on YouTube, just label it city meeting and work session, whoever labels it.
we can
Budget work session.
Oh, fine.
Yeah,
just announce it.
just put special meeting and work session, so. Who does you label those? Does Jimmy label those usually? Yeah,
Work session, we're live too.
yeah, we're live for the work session too. Sneak a chip while she's up there. I didn't get any lunch. What's that?
Hi, Susan. Good, how are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, just say. Yeah, just say, budget work session.
We're gonna open it back up to the budget work session on July 26, 2022. Only discussion, nothing will be voted on.
Okay. That's what my wife says.
All right, we gotta be out of here a little before 6 because the county's coming. Yeah. 45 minutes, yep. Yes, Kelly, it's all yours.
Okay. Commissioners and Madam Mayor, we are going to, as we start this work session, we're going to be working with the water budget Susan Bancroft is here also to work with us on projections and previous budgets with the city. The water's broke out into several sections of production, distribution, administration, and then the lake. Susan, did you want to kind of start going through a few of those a little bit?
For 2022, we really, you have your first column is 2021, and then the second column is 2022. And so we really take this time to do some projections to see if we're going to come in on target. And I talked to Kelly earlier in the afternoon, and I feel like we are missing the mark just a little bit on water. I do have one question. Devin, do you remember when we changed the rates? Was it the first full billing cycle, or was it like the second cycle? Billing cycle? Okay. February. Okay. Okay. So people are conserving water. That's how I look at that. But if we're taking what we've made so far currently this year, dividing it by the 6 months and projecting out for the 12 months, we're going to be about $40,000 short.
But there is a quick question, there's still a week left in this month, so
Yeah.
so it should be a little bit less than that.
No, because our billings would have already posted.
I just mean like late payers and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you don't have a huge swing there. I mean, there could be some, maybe 10,000, but not a full 40.
Yeah.
So I think there's something else going on there. And it's something that we could dig in and look at the financials and see what month compared to year over year to see. I haven't been that involved, but that's something that, Devin and I and Kelly could sit down and look at. And then we're trying to get a cash carryover for the next year. So everything's really kind of based off of your revenues. And so we're trying to get a cash carryover that's about 3 months operating. I know Kelly likes to do maybe a little bit more than that, but this fund is so tight. I think 3 months is about all we can handle right now till we build up some reserves. And that still allows for a small transfer to the Water Capital Reserve and a transfer to the general fund, because that's how you were funding raises last year, was that $250,000 transfer. Now, if you look in 2023, we don't have that transfer built in yet.
Right.
So we're hoping that we can wean ourselves off of that, but we still have some work to do in the general fund.
Yeah.
So for now, we don't have it there. Debt service had changed a little bit, and that was something that Kelly didn't have the up-to-date debt service schedule, so we talked about that earlier today, and we made some changes there. What else? We reduced a line item for contractual services. We had budgeted $100,000 there last year, and that was for if we had any needed engineering services. So we reduced that line item to $50,000 for both years. So it's really kind of just if there's something major that happens, we can maybe use those dollars to help with engineering. Now this is complete. These were just my notes back to Kelly. When I had built the budgets in the past, I would have the water meters coming out of the reserve account, and he prefers to have them in this account. So you can potentially pull some money out of your reserves back to cover that, but then you may need the reserves for other projects too. So right now we're making it on these numbers, and it looks like there's an increase built into the wages too for 23.
On the wages, on the budget report, it shows the 711,500 original total budget for wages at 234,840, but on the report it shows 350.
That includes everything on your personnel. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
And I wasn't a part of the putting together the wages.
Yeah.
I just put the numbers in that were given to me.
When you say all of it. What, I mean,
That's your FICA, your capers, unemployment, all of it, all of your fringe. That's
okay.
Be
That's your
full-time,
bottom
part-time,
line.
overtime, health
For-
insurance.
yeah, overtime. Yeah.
Life, Aflac unemployment,
Mhm.
workers' comp, capers, FICA.
So on the state budget form, they just condense it all to be personnel. But that's a good question.
So on the commodities, we show in 2001, we were at 34,463. This year, we're running at 12 at the 6-month cycle, which means we're going to be at least 24 to 28 by the time everything's done. And we're only projecting or proposing 15 for next year, which is going to leave us in a possible deficit of 15,000 on commodities.
Which commodities?
Are you talking about?
What's it? Say that again, please.
Which department?
This is still in the water department.
The 500, the one at the top, or there's 520,
I am
530?
3 below 530 on commodities.
Okay.
So you're in 530.
department.
Yes. So that's okay. I see
That's
what
the
you're saying.
lake.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So, let me look at previous years real quick.
And so then the same would hold true for the commodities there under 520.
And that'll have to probably be a question that I took Kelly's numbers to put them into
Okay.
to the budget. So let me look.
Because is this commodities estimate, is that for the whole year or is that just 6 months?
So typically, what you've been running, 2019, 2020, 2021 just happened to be a year where it was up.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened in 2021. I'd have to go back and look. But typically, it's been around $13,000 in that.
Okay.
That fund.
All right. And then in under 520, the commodities, is that the same thing? It was up in 21 and it's normally running around 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's exactly it. Yep. And we've always told our department heads that you can go over in one area, but make up for it in another area. It's that bottom line that we're most concerned
Okay.
about. Because there may be a year where they need something special, that's a commodity, but they have some money left in contractual. But we want them to expense it in the correct account as to what it is. We don't want them moving that around because
Yes.
then that gives us a clearer picture of what it's taking to run the
Okay.
organization.
Yeah, and one of the things you can see that kind of is a good stake in the ground to measure from is your 2021 figures. If you go from 2021 into 2022, you can see some of those lines may be a little deficient, so we've tried to make up for it a little bit in 2023. So we haven't amended the 2023 to 2022 budget or changed those numbers because those were the numbers that we were given for our budget authority. So we can't change those numbers, but they may be a lot light or deficient. So as of what the expenditures were last year, and so even with the 9% cost of living and some of that, we've tried to compensate for that a little bit in the 2023 budget. So just so you know, if you see a variation, and that's what that's from. Yeah, they kind of frown on when you just start moving numbers around on the state budget form without budget authority.
Can I ask a couple more questions?
Sure.
Okay. So on the debt services, where are we moving that to? Because if we don't have it in 2022, from my understanding from looking over the other numbers, we still had debt that we were going to pay out.
We
of
still
the-
have it there.
Okay.
It's down towards the bottom.
It's in the funds that created it, Matthew.
Okay.
So
The other thing is, excuse me, Susan, but that number is going to grow. just as soon, right now, all we're paying, and that's the other thing that's gonna really hit us in 23, is we're gonna refinance that temp note, and that's gonna grow pretty exponentially. Right now, we're just doing $116,638 of interest. That's gonna have a principal payment with it also.
Right. And you've got some debt rolling off.
Yes.
um,
In 24.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's see what.
You have 129,125 rolling off in 24, which will be consumed by that temp note. But we're fortunate to have it.
Right.
Very fortunate. So that's why I was saying last week is it's going to be 26 before we get to that 479,000 they'll roll out.
Right. So it's tight for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this budget is built, this one that you're looking at is just a 3% increase on your charges of service. If you decide to do something else, then, that will change these numbers.
Right. That's why we've been talking about a meter fee as we continue to change out the meters. And one thing you need to understand about a meter is the curve on a mechanical meter. Unlike an electronic meter, they stay straight across until they die. But a mechanical meter on the bell curve will drop off on the back end, and you'll lose a lot of water on the back end. And that's why we're trying to put in as many as we can every year to keep our meter program going.
So that was going to be my next question. I don't see anything in here for capital outlays in any of these departments. So how are we funding the meters?
But you see that there's a water capital reserve transfer towards the
Yes.
bottom. That gets put into that capital reserve fund for your capital projects.
Correct.
That's all your capital outlay.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm good with that. But from my understanding with the projects that we're going to have going with the aerators and the lift station and everything else,
That's sewer.
that's also.
But we do have water projects we have coming up, and typically it costs us about $400,000 a year to do a water project to find a matching grant.
Okay.
So,
So-
really so let me kind of step back a second. We really created those capital improvement funds to help us start saving for some of these bigger projects. Sometimes that's lost in the whole budget conversation because you can't physically see it right here on this. And capital improvement funds, we really don't have to do a budget page for them.
Okay.
You just have to report what you've spent. Last year, I actually put a budget page in there so you can see this money that's going from here is going over here, and here's what your cash balance is for transparency purposes. And we can continue to do that because I think it's just good practice.
Yeah.
And we talk about what projects you're planning to use those dollars for. But to say that you have anything beyond this $200,000, you don't have enough cash coming in to be able to support anything bigger than that.
Yes.
Now, I didn't look to see what the cash balance was in that fund to know how much is still sitting there. So, I don't have my computer on me, otherwise I'd look it up real quick. But that's a conversation that needs to happen in conjunction with this.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
So then the money that we're currently spending to change out the meters, that's not coming from an error. We're just eating that.
Yes. And we have ever since we started.
Okay.
so changing the meter, we've always had a meter change out program since I came.
Okay.
But we haven't pulled specific funding for it.
It's always come out of their operating.
Yeah.
I had just moved it last year to their capital improvements fund, but this is showing. So what they were typically, let me get to that exact department, okay? 510. So in the past, they hadn't had a program for a really long time. And so Bill and I had gotten together to put together a 5 to 10 year program to get all the meters changed out. And so that's kind of continuing that on. In 2019, there was about $82,000 spent. In 2020, there was only $44,000 spent. But then in 2021, there was closer to about 80,000 spent. So for 22, we had budgeted 150,000, and then I think for 23, there's 150,000, and so that's part of that. If you look at the line that says water distribution 510,
Under commodities.
commodities, if you go across there, that's part of that number. So, you know, if we had enough money over in the capital improvements to maybe pull that budget and move it over there, then that would give you more money here to work with. It's the same difference though, if you really get down
And so
to
we're
it.
thinking that number for the meters to stay the same this year, because I think our last workshop,
Yes.
the number was actually over $200,000, like
Mm.
218 or something.
Yeah,
Why was it so much?
I think it was a little bit.
I think it
no,
was-
no, no. That was total. This
Yeah.
year was like 300 and some thousand. Next year's 290 something.
Yeah.
So it's actually about 15,000 less than this year,
To change the meters?
if I remember right. The meter change out. What
No.
do we?
So we
could be
were
wrong.
doubling up on how many we were gonna change then?
Bill was gonna try to get in the 300s, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're gonna be able to do that with all the other projects?
We might have to get some part-timers to help us this summer.
Well, my concern is the cash flow.
Yeah.
That's my question is where are we getting, so like when I change out like a meter for my electricity, they charge me a meter fee to come in and put the new meter in. We're not charging anything to change out these
We
meters.
never have.
But it
We
looked
never
like the
have.
last 3 or 4 years were all consistent. It wasn't look like we were doing anything more this year than we did last year or the year before.
100,000?
Whatever it
Pretty much.
was
Pretty much
it looked like we had
100,000.
like a 3 or 4 year comparison. It looked all the same number of meters. It might went up a little bit because of the cost of meters, but
Mm-hmm.
the last, at least I think since 2020 is what it showed us all roughly the same.
And the
So,
number of meters being switched out.
yeah,
Yeah.
But then this year, we're wanting to double that?
no, it looked the same. Is what I'm saying.
The
last
amount of
4 or 5
meters is
years,
the same, it's the
the
cost
cost,
of the
but it
meters.
wasn't double.
So are they,
But it was more than 100,000 even in 2020, 2021.
150 is what we have budgeted.
Yeah.
But it was more, like you said,
Is Bill here? So I guess, is it bigger meters that we're switching out this year? Bigger size?
I don't know, but what I'm saying is it was consistent since 2020 or 2021. The actual dollar amount has been consistent with the report we got.
But was that pulled from the financials?
I don't know. It just
Yeah.
the
Because that's not what the financials are saying. So I would want to research that, and I can research that for you if you'd like. Because I know Bill had a schedule, but sometimes our schedule doesn't always line up with the fiscal year of when we're purchasing things. So is that something you want me to research? Or Devin research?
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes.
Yes.
yeah, that should be pretty.
As well as
Yeah.
we might want to get with Bill and find out what the cost
Definitely.
projections on the new meters are.
Yeah.
Because everything has gone up.
There is a report in there that you can pull on what meters have been placed out there,
Mm-hmm.
what mock numbers. So
Yeah, but sometimes he buys and keeps stuff in inventory, so that it's always there. So he may have replenished some inventory too. So yeah, that's easy to look at. But yeah, so if that's the case, there's only 150,000 in 22 and 23 figured in. So if we need to increase those numbers, then that will drop our cash balances, and we won't have 3 months operating.
and if we hire more part-time people, that's gonna
Yeah.
do the cost of.
Mm-hmm.
Or can we do what
Yeah,
the
he-
other utilities? Is it feasible to do what the other utilities do and charge a meter change out fee?
Okay.
Yeah, and Bill had asked for part-time help, but we just didn't have the budget for it.
Because I don't think we want to raise the water rate again.
No, but my only thing is, if we're consistent on what we've done and we haven't had a charge in the past and we build it through the rates, then
Mhm.
I don't see really raising them if we've done it consistently.
But
How
if,
long's the program been going on?
Long time.
A long time. That's my only
Right.
concern is, I mean, we've been doing a long time without a meter change out fee because I think our rates are just,
Well, it's
Is
not
that just a
the-
one-time fee that you're thinking too?
that's all I'm thinking is a one-time fee to
I think you
Offset
were
the
looking at a
cost.
monthly fee, weren't you, Kelly?
So my
Yes.
concern with that is it's not a consistent revenue. It'd be hard. I mean, I suppose you can get it into a cycle, but you would want to make sure that you have a pretty good plan in place and make sure you're changing that out, because you're going to become dependent on those dollars. And if you're not doing the same amount of change outs every year,
Mhm.
then your numbers are going to go up and down a lot.
Well, I'm personally, I'm thinking that it's something that we use just for those meters and we charge just to do the meters. That's my personal feeling on it. I'm just looking at the price of how much has gone up. What did they say last month? 9.1 is the new inflation rate on how much everything's gone up. Well, we raised the rates 3.5%.
I will say this, I know everyone uses this number as high,
Mhm.
but let's look over the last 20, 30 years, and I think we've outdone inflation
Yeah.
on a lot of years. And so that's my concern, is all them years we outdid inflation. And I know it's catching up now, but that's what happens when government keeps raising
Yeah.
over inflation, when inflation high. I mean, I know we need to use it, but it's hard to use an excuse.
Yeah.
Well, and from the benefit of changing out your meters, you are going to have a more accurate reading, especially with this newer technology. So you're going to be capturing more dollars, I think, by having a more up-to-date meter, more accurate meter. And so I think you'll see your revenues increase just because we're replacing meters.
Because you have a more accurate count for
Yeah.
water usage.
The downside is your continued increase in capital operating expenses, O&M, things like that. That's one of the things Bill said. We have got to start getting lines in the ground, replacing the cast iron lines. The meter program has been taking money from other things. So we've been funding that, but it's robbed Peter to pay Paul, is what it's done. And so we're running on zero balance. Well, yeah, we're making it, but we haven't done anything really to speak of to change out valves and things that could really help us or keep us from having to go under boil orders when we get a major break in some of these cast lines. So we're getting into a very dangerous place. It's not a good thing when your water crew have breaks ahead of them and they can't get caught up. That's my whole point on, we have got to get some water projects going.
Yeah.
Just speaking of what Matt said, whenever you get time, give me the price of what a meter is, and then the
Yep. And
how
I'll
often we
give
change
you,
them out.
Bill has a worksheet and I'll send that out to all of you.
Great.
He sent me printouts on all that. Yeah.
Because
The other thing is some of those have increased when they change a few setters and they change boxes and they change things like that. So I think he had $40,000 in that, along with, so there was some added expense to just the meter costs. We just got through putting in a reader program, the 360, and I think it cost us $8,000. So these things all add up.
I've looked at the water budget over the last several years, and it seems like it is running at a large negative every year.
Are you looking at? So it's really hard to look at budget. You have to look at actuals.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You have to look at actuals because, like, I'm going to use 21 as an example. We had 3.3 million in 3361 in revenue, and we spent 3.4. So we had a shortfall, roughly $40,000. And some years we don't have that, but when we budget, we are conservative in our revenues, and we try to budget enough so that we don't have to do a budget amendment at that year during the year. So we give enough budget authority to spend, but we don't really spend that much because they try to pinch pennies as much as they possibly can in case we have a water main break or something.
I think you might have talked about this earlier, but the transfer to the general fund, we didn't have to do that last year,
Mm-mm.
and probably won't have to do it this year.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at everything, I don't think we have to, but
Now, just remember in 23, you lose 4% of your grocery tax.
No, you don't.
it dropped.
January 1st.
It's
No,
it's a
it's
sliding
just-
scale.
No, but it's just state. It doesn't affect us here.
Yeah.
That's just the state revenue that is being affected. Your local tax will still continue to fund as it always has,
Unless there's push.
unless there's push.
Yep.
But that'll be a vote.
Yeah, we'll still have our 2%,
Yeah.
whatever,
Mhm.
3%.
So that shouldn't affect your general fund.
Yeah.
But what is affecting your general fund, and which is I'm not here for it or against it is we have moved so much sales tax to fund streets and parks and things like that, that it makes your general fund really tight. So those are things just to kind of consider. And when we get to the general fund, you'll be able to see that.
Bring in sales tax.
Yes, we need growth, retail growth. That would be Rob Harrington. Rob Harrington.
Yeah.
You're funny.
Keep holding out.
Yeah, right.
Hope you're not holding your breath.
No, I just when I look at each department, I like to see a department that funds itself. And so when I see a negative within the department on a service that we're providing, I want to know why we're running at such a negative. And so when I look at those numbers, it looked to me like we were down a lot more than 40,000 on projected how much
Unprojected, absolutely. We
for
were
what we're going to lose. Okay.
unprojected, but we all, like I said, we inflate our budget
Yep.
so that we have the authority to spend. We aren't necessarily going to spend that. So like this $50,000 that's sitting in here for a contractual line item,
Mhm.
most likely will not be spent unless there's like an emergency. It just gives you the authority to spend it if you
Yes,
need
ma'am.
it. So our target is always to be at this $1 million carryover amount.
Okay.
That'd be really nice.
Mhm.
It gives you a lot of cushion.
Okay.
And so that should be our target.
Okay.
You know, I'm showing you a budget that's saying 780, that's 3 months operating. But more realistically, we could meet that number again.
Yeah, and you know, some of this stuff long term will benefit. I mean, replacing the meters will absolutely benefit. But to Kelly's point, between the fact that we're kind of light years behind, having modern, accurate meters
Mm-hmm.
and the cast iron pipe and everything else has got to be fixed. It's just, as you said earlier, it's going to be tough times for a few years. But if we do it right, then 3-4 years, these numbers should hopefully turn the other way.
We've been very reactive rather than proactive.
Right.
But we don't have a funding mechanism to allow us to be proactive.
Right.
I don't think there's a whole lot of cities that get that opportunity because you're always
Mm-mm.
fighting taxes. So.
No. Yeah.
I will say on the water lake maintenance, I know it looks like we're still budgeting for 1.5 or 2, but I think we just have one person out there. I don't think there's 2 people out there at the lake anymore.
That's true, and we just kind of a throwdown number depending on what we need.
Yeah.
Kind of like Susan says, we've actually cut back out there to just the one person, Randy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I guess in that's kind of very departmental, depending on the needs of where that may move around a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't look unless we do something else out there to need other help. We're probably not looking to do anything else.
Yeah, so there's where some of your savings will come into play.
Which we'll have to find it. I mean, just moving over to another department if I have to find it there. But
So I guess the question becomes, do you want to try and keep things tight? Or do you want to look at options for increasing revenue? That's the real question.
here's for the water fund for me personally, it's the transfer. So it's hard to look at this by itself without looking at the general fund or the reserves.
Okay. So you've got a glance at it
Yeah.
now. So when we get ready to get to those
Just-
other departments, we can really kind of pull it all together.
I know from talking with Bill that there's a massive amount of 2-inch lines that are in desperate need of being replaced. Desperate need. And we don't have any money to do it right now.
Do we know approximately how many miles
Yeah, do we have a
and
plan?
cost?
And-
Is there a
yeah.
plan? Okay, I haven't
Yeah,
seen
he
that,
does
so I'll
have
have to
a
get
plan.
that from Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah. And our other stymie is that I think it was brought up last meeting, is that we're more maintenance than being able to do a lot of capital. Our crews are a lot of times doing maintenance and they can't always get to installation on new lines. ARPA money will get us so far on water and then we'll end up exhausting it as well. So just keep that in mind as we go into that half loop down there South Industrial Park. That'll take about half our ARPA funds. So any other major projects we have will probably wipe it out.
No grant funding for that available?
We tried a couple, and right now the thing that they're doing is it appears that the state is kind of deciding and pushing things towards that big block of 1.3 trillion.
The bill,
Yeah,
BIL?
yeah.
Mhm.
They haven't kind of, but it looks like even in CDBG, as I've talked to some of them, that they kind of feel that that's where they're pushing everybody towards those infrastructure monies. And it's like everybody else that can't get here fast enough kind of thing.
That's something that we need to get with Rob on then and his grant writer.
Yeah, I got
Because
turned
there
down
are
for the block grant.
There are some deadlines, some hard, fast deadlines on a lot of those projects. I didn't pay attention to the water one because I was focused on the county side of things, but I can get with her and see if there's any opportunities because I think you still apply regardless.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Especially on those big projects like the Loop. And isn't there a big one right down here in front of the,
on State Street and
Yes.
then one going across 69.
yeah. And so do we have engineer estimates on those already?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's perfect. And we can get those to Emily and she can write the grant and,
Yep.
and I think we need to apply.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, but we applied for 2 different grants on the loop down south.
We did.
And they had millions of dollars to build a convention center up near Kansas
I
City.
know.
Millions of dollars to do something else.
I know.
But 400,000 to do a water line. That
Yeah.
was just not. There wasn't money for that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There were some others that I was going,
very
"Well,
questionable.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We don't make those decisions.
We need somebody lobbying for us somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
So
How much does a lobbyist cost?
a lot.
You can tell us. Get us some numbers on that if you would. It might be worth it in the long.
So the next one will be over what? Next budget workshop?
We're going to try to tear into probably the general fund or as much of it as we can get going on.
When you get the other utilities, you know when we'll do the other utilities?
Well, we kind of have sewer ready to go, but we wanted to give us, I mean, we have a short session because of our little meeting we had on the front load, but
I think we can do all those at that next budget meeting and roll it all together. And I've got all the little bitty small
Okay.
ones that are,
Did we ever do an audit on
the little
stormwater?
parts. Do what now?
Have we ever done an audit on stormwater? I know we talked about it last year. Did it start before you leave?
yeah,
Right.
and that was one of the projects that I had
Yes.
left
Yeah.
for someone to do, and I don't think that anybody's ever done it. What we were doing is we want to go out to all the people currently in the system and see if their stormwater rate is correct based on their impervious area. And I think we've got several in the system that are wrong. And so that was one of the things that we've had such a turnover in the utility office though too, that, but codes was supposed to be the ones that was helping us. And there's been turnover there too. So, I mean,
Okay.
it's probably just a project that needs to get put back on the list and go out and just double check them.
Okay, and it's stormwater? utility?
Stormwater. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a utility study?
It's just an audit that, I would say codes is the right group to go out and just look and see what the area is. It'd be like a parking lot or,
Okay.
just with that, whatever would go into our storm drain area.
Did we decide if that could be done on GIS?
Oh, I think it can, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I'll
Can be
talk
done.
to the fellas.
We just needed to make sure that where it was located on a couple of them, which
Mhm.
we pinpoint.
hmm and there's enough new people up front that it may, you may have to get with them and explain to them because they're numbered funny in the system, like 1 through 10. And so a person's not going to know what 1 is or 2 is or 3, you're going to have to match those up against some rates to know.
Okay.
And then the other thing, there was another audit that needed to be done for your out of town customers. I don't know if that one was ever done. Whether or not they're being charged the 1.5 times on wastewater and water.
That was started.
It was started.
It was started, but I
Okay.
don't know if it was ever completed.
Okay. And then the final one is we have a special district that is called Timber Hills. And I know there's been some new homes built out there, and I would imagine that they got hooked into the system, and if they did, then they're not being charged sewer. So that needs to be followed up on.
And those are reports that can be pulled also to check if they're being adequately charged.
Okay.
How do we, speaking of that, how do we know when people are hooked up to the sewer and they're not?
So I think it's one of those deals you're just gonna have to call over to the Register of Deeds and say, has there been any new deeds filed or any new projects? Because that is a privately owned district. The pumps, everything, the pump station, all of that, the lift stations are all privately owned. So,
But I'm thinking just beyond them, it was brought to my attention that there may be as many as 98 to 300 people there who are hooked up to the sewer who may not be paying rates. And
I don't
I
know
was
how we
supposed to
would
ask
ever
about
know that.
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. How would we find that out? Do we
Well,
just
Midland-
research all the deeds back for the last 15 years and
And the
cross
county
apply?
doesn't do anything on septics after they're installed, do they?
Midland did the GIS. They mapped the entire city system. So anybody that's hooked up to our sewer, we should know.
So that
But
might-
wouldn't that information have been provided by us?
No, they were actually here for like 6
And
months.
actually went
Actually
and-
boots on the ground.
Okay.
GPSing everything.
So then if that's the case, then we're in good shape. Now, there is some people, there are some places that are grandfathered in that can't hook up to our sewer because of all the rock. Those are some areas, that I know are going to possibly not be on our sewer. Trying to think of some other things that we ran into. But I know there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done in the system. And that's a whole year process for somebody to do that. So.
Well, I know Michael Mix had sent out letters, and I think Lisa was part of that, to send some letters out on the ones that to prove that they were either on sewer or not. And we got a pretty good response, so I think they're kind of including some of that, but we can check into these other outlying areas too.
So are you saying, from what I hear you saying, there would need to be somebody who would work for a full year on getting this stuff cleaned up?
They need to, somebody needs to be assigned that project.
And
Absolutely.
then they possibly wouldn't be able to do anything else during that year.
I think they can, that's why I said it was going to take a year, because they'll be doing their job and
Okay,
doing this on the
alright.
side. No, it could be assigned to a utility
I'll
clerk.
talk to Michael about doing. He's pretty good at that.
They need trained though to actually know what to do though.
Yeah.
On that, because it's kind of detail oriented and looking at the correct accounts and usage and stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's it. Until next week.